thanks Edgars for actually inviting me here. It's very nice to be here, to be with you. And I'm very excited about such a huge audience, so let's give another applause for you guys. So, because it's also quite a coincidence, maybe a strategic one actually, that I'm here today, and the next speaker is going to be Aldis Krust from IT Centers, and the third one is going to be Juris Pūte. Guys, are you here early or not yet? There's Aldis, right? So, and one thing that actually connects three of us is meeting the University of Applied Sciences in Bulgaria, specifically the cybersecurity engineering study program, where all of us are lecturers, so come and learn cybersecurity with us. I'm sure that we can give you something. So, regarding the security, why do we do that? Everything works.
So
it's fine, right?
I have a question. Does the ventilation bother you or always good with sound?
It's okay? Yeah? I can speak louder. All right.
I can turn louder if needed, or everything is good.
For me, it's okay. So.
For you, it's okay?
Okay, yeah, it's fine. Let's continue. So, guys, how secure do you feel today? Well, is it okay? Is it fine with all the things what happen around? How secure do you feel carrying this device around? It's in your pocket. It's actually, going after all your, things that you do, that you eat, that you visit, your steps, your e-activities, what you browse on the internet. It tracks everything, right? How many here are Apple users, Apple iPhone? All right? Android ones? Maybe some Linux phones that do not track anything. No, not yet. So I'm really considering switching to one because it's crazy what's happening. But all right, we are not here today to speak about our phones. It's yes, it's a problem, obviously. But let's see what actually there is. What food? What tracks attackers back to our data? What tracks attackers back to the company where we work? What tracks them back to the product that we are developing, right? So this is kind of, we are focusing for developers. It's a developer's guide to external reconnaissance. You're not going to see here a ton of tools because, well, there is a ton of tools out there, you can find them all, but I'll speak about the core things that those tools actually are wrapping. So let's see what attackers can learn about your infrastructure, about your posture on the internet. By the way, yes, I'm Kristaps, I'm founder of two companies, co-founder actually. So in Routed In we actually do cybersecurity consulting, but in the new initiative, HammerProof Defense, we're actually towards a tool that works for us. So I'll actually show you the core of it, so what it uses. So you can use it yourselves. So we are here about open source intelligence. So it's what it means. It's a reconnaissance or using data which are publicly out there on the internet, accessible, which might not, it shouldn't be there, all of it obviously, but it is there actually, and it allows us to learn about how we look in the internet from the attacker's point of view, and obviously it also allows attackers to learn about you and to turn that information into possible attack vectors. What is a vector? Obviously you learn the math and geometry and that, but actually that's the way how they can enter your infrastructure. So how do you feel about what you know about Latvijas valsts meža and satiskas drošības direkcijas SDD? So it's, well, it is what we are, it is what's happening. So attackers are actually learning public exposure, public endpoints, information, maybe some old systems that are out there, dev, staging, servers, whatever is there, right? And if they're co-hosted on a single resource, obviously, it's an even bigger threat, right? So, obviously, even before we go further on, authorization is everything, right? And if you do it ourselves and if you try to actually map, how secure our partners or clients, whatever, you can't actually do that without authorization, right? Because it's outside the boundaries of ethics. So you can do everything what is passive, called passive information gathering. So use the internet, use the search engines, use publicly indexed databases that collect information about others. Okay, you can use that, but you cannot directly hammer on their door, right? You cannot directly, port scan their server. You know how much data is there, transmitted when you do a full port scan on a single IP address? It's kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes. So what do you think? If it's TCP plus UDP, it could be more than 1 gigabyte. So it depends on the situation, but it's a lot of traffic. It's close into denial of service attack that you are actually doing while just port scanning, right? So don't do that unless you are authorized to do that. Obviously, you can do it in your own infrastructure. All right. So here's a simplified kill chain, killing vulnerabilities on your own infrastructure or defending your infrastructure, right? So you do the discovery. You actually try to learn what you have before you can protect it, right? So you don't just jump on hiring security engineer and ordering him to actually close all the gaps, because he's not aware what the gaps are, what do you have, what's the infrastructure, what services do you have, what's the history of the company, right? So the discovery part is the most important one. Obviously, if you have some gaps in the discovery part, you actually don't see everything that you have, right? That you'll leave for attackers. Obviously, a lot of findings will come, you prioritize, and then you try to resolve that. How to prioritize, you'll get to that, but obviously there has to be some kind of framework, right? That simplified defense chain of your own is the attacker's playbook, actually, how they work. So also they do reconnaissance, discovery, right? They select the target, which is the lowest hanging fruit. So obviously the one with the most vulnerabilities, with the unpatched system for years, and then they pivot through what they learn, maybe some different targets on the way, until they find something very juicy, interesting, a lot of data, a lot of personal identifiable information, which is in high volume nowadays, right? Obviously they do the exploitation, cryptography, stealing it, selling it, publishing it, whatever they want, right? Because you left that unseen. So, we'll go through a case company today, actually, and it's going to be based on real situation, real security audit that we did lately. Obviously, I cannot tell the name because they haven't fixed anything of it yet. So, but you'll learn something interesting, I hope. So let's start with two resources. They have their corporate website, which is a common website with the things, describe the things that they do, maybe listing their partners, right? Maybe having some contact form, maybe having some vacancies, for new positions, maybe something else. A common web form, right? A website, right? And then the second one is e-commerce store, so web shop, internet shop, right? It's something maybe interesting, yeah? So those two resources. About the company itself, it's quite decent company, been there out for decades, I would say. But there is one common gap and thing, issue that many companies share. There's one guy in shared positions, right? So it's the company owner, director, itself the IT guy, and many other roles, probably, right? HR as well, and so on. The turnover of the company is more than 4 billion, so kind of they have some cash. But still, let's move on. So, what we can learn about these kind of resources on a website and an eShop. Obviously, well, we can visit them. As a simple user, web user, opening browser, visiting the website, visiting eShop, and obviously, trying, starting to analyze, what, how it acts. Are there any, interesting information there? Actually, in the normal website, where a company actually has some vacancies section, they might publish actually some, technical vacancies, right? Some, asking, looking for a developer, a QA lead, DevOps engineer, and they are actually listing technologies, so actually know what technology they're working with. So that's kind of the first thing that might attackers look. And obviously, if they have some bad endpoints, they can actually query for some technology-specific strings. So that's one thing that they are looking for. The other is, of course, analyzing the server responses, the headers of the web requests, and obviously most of the systems currently in the web, they run under Apache or Nginx web servers, and once you install them, what you do, you forget about them, right? Because it works. You never patch them. And that's one of the key things that we see. Unpatched web services out there. Another common misconfiguration actually is HTTP and HTTPS connections, so secure versus unsecure connection, unencrypted versus encrypted connection, right? And the thing is that sometimes they're missing just the redirect. So obviously you can open HTTPS, but HTTP works as well. So, some things are falling unencrypted sometimes, and obviously there are two people, within the same Wi-Fi, within the same network, within the same, corporation inside network as well. Obviously the other guy, well, it's an inside threat, they can see what others browse. So that's another thing. Let's move on. Automation risk. Automation risk, usually what we see is connected with some input fields, input field validation, and input field validation, well, the best thing, how to protect them, those contact forms, application forms, whatever, request forms. Well, it's using the captcha terms, right? Cloudflare captcha, Google captcha, other captcha, there are different formats now for captchas, like recognizing those buses, those where you walk across the street, those things you need to map. Actually today I had a call from a guy, and he said he's blocked out of his OneDrive, and I happen to know actually the password for the OneDrive because it was it's a shared resource, which is very bad, of course. But anyways, I checked. Yes, well, the account is blocked, and he said that once he tried to unblock it, there was a captcha asking him to prove that he's a human, and he needed to click on a bar which is filling to the 100%, and he said that he was, it was filling quite slowly, and he kept that pressure for 10 minutes. So, well, that was something interesting. Obviously, for me, it worked, 10 seconds, and of course, it's fine. But in general, captchas are there to actually protect, those input fields. Obviously, if you implement them correctly, there are out there a lot of services actually where you can, pay a bit for money. They're actually breaking those captchas in live. So that's something to consider as well, to test how strong is your captcha implementation. So, let's go on. Process security headers. That's something that we see from our, reconnaissance a lot there. A lot of websites actually are missing to implement these core security headers, content security policies, strict transport security, others. By the way, do you know what this strict transport security, the second from the top means?
I think it's HTTPS only forces it.
Especially on the first request, where sometimes it could be HTTP, right? So yes, it's quite important because attackers tend to actually use that as well. So keep an eye on your headers. One thing how you can test them easily is I usually go to Qualys SSL labs. They're quite good. Input the domain and you just get the results like F, which is very bad, but you can fix it then. All right, let's move on. Certificates and credentials. So obviously, two resources that I mentioned: the storefront, the eShop. It had a valid certificate, still valid for plenty of time. The website one, absolutely, it had only 37 days, so I can just imagine whether they have automated renewal process. If they're not, they will run out of TLS validation, and obviously they're in a bad situation with that. So I'm actually seeing that quite a lot. A lot of companies, well, they use Let's Encrypt, for example, which is good, as long as you put on automated renewal. If that doesn't work, obviously you forget about it, that's for sure. The other thing, websites usually have some contact sections, whatever, right? And in contact sections you find emails. Emails you can input in this have I been bound service. I hope you know it. If not, you can actually find it with those 4 letters, or have I been bound, actually, and you can input your email address and actually see if that's connected to any of the data breaches with some passwords. Obviously, they don't reveal what's the password for the email that is in breach, but you can actually see if if the corporate emails for your employees and colleagues are within some recent breach. Obviously, then you just rotate the credentials. Obviously, well, otherwise it's quite a big risk, right? Let's go further on. What else actually in this case study we found? Default install pages. My most kind of favorite one is it works. You open up IP address. Let's say there is a shop.example.com, right? Some eShop, right? But you can ping that domain, which reveals the IP address, and if it's not Cloudflare, obviously it's the hosting IP address. Then you open that in the web browser, and it won't open, obviously, the same shop, because the shop is routed through the domain name, subdomain maybe, right? But the direct IP address leads to the default install page of the web service. And if there is some, maybe folder listing available or something else that you can imagine, obviously there's another door inside the infrastructure. So Apache default pages, Nginx default pages, Plesk, something else as well, and some of them actually have some interesting information, like paths to some other files, actually. And then you can actually just travel to those other files and see what's in there on the server. And maybe something that can actually lead to another attack vector, right? All right, let's move on. Certificates. So one of the key findings actually on the internet that you can find for your company's domain, for other companies, is a list of subdomains. And obviously, well, there are different methods how to get those. With simple Google Docs, Googling, with some queries in the Google, you can actually do that as well. You could do that several years ago when there was a common misconfiguration allowing DNS zone transfer. If you don't know what that is, actually, it's the protocol between two DNS servers how to synchronize the DNS records. And obviously, the correct configuration is that you allow only those two DNS servers to talk to each other, right? with this protocol, right? And the reality was that you could, well, anyone, could just approach the DNS server of the organization and dump the whole database of, listing subdomains, also some internal computer names, host names. If there's active directory, usually there was quite a lot of things to find. So that's accessible from the internet. Nowadays, there are different services that actually are helping to map your current and past infrastructure. One, which is free, is crt.sh. Sometimes it doesn't work. Don't worry, come back tomorrow and it might work. But what it does, it's a public database for all publicly issued, trusted TLS certificates. So obviously when you issue a TLS certificate, you put in a domain or subdomain or wildcard. So a list of all your historical dev test staging servers are listed here, which have the TLS certificate, of course. So that's kind of quite huge and valuable information, I would say, because then the attacker can actually test each one of those, and some of them actually, they are still registered. They point to some IP address, let's say in Google Cloud, in AWS, in Hetzner, and the server is not even there anymore. And then one day, attacker goes to AWS, rents a new server, gets the same IP address for that server that is still linked to your subdomain there, and it's actually hosted, he is hosting his malicious site under your name, because you still point your subdomain to that IP address. Okay, not pretty good. So I hope you got the idea. If not, just always interrupt me and ask. But this is a huge thing. Try to actually see what you get for your own infrastructure, and I'm sure you'll be quite surprised. All right. Okay, let's get going. Again, just those two resources. We're still there, but we found quite a lot of things during the Wayback Machine, Web Archive, and here what you can see usually is a timeline. A timeline for a website actually, when it was first, up there, and how often it was visited, right? So that's what this resource actually does. And obviously, if the website was published, 10 years ago, it might be in the same version as 10 years ago, right? Not even updated, maybe. All right. So going further on, there is another resource up in there in the right upper corner. You see the resource's name. It's shodan.io. Actually, it's quite useful web index, the database that actively monitors all the public internet, IP addresses, technologies that are out there hosted, anything. So basically, if you input a technology name, let's say MikroTik, it's going to find all the MikroTiks exposed out there on the internet. If you're, inputting the IP address, it's going to find resources related to that IP address out there. There are filters for regions, for companies within specific region, whatever. And what it actually shows, what's the interesting thing is it shows open ports. It means that you don't even need to do active reconnaissance, active scanning for ports actually to see what open services are there, what open services are there for that infrastructure, right? Behind each port, there is a service actually with its banner, with the information, what version the service is, some other information, useful information sometimes. So quite useful database, which is actually additionally pointing you to some regions where the resources are located, right? Maybe in Riga, maybe in Frankfurt, maybe in Helsinki. The data centers where you sit. So this is what you see. Going further on, obviously you'll find a lot of resources out there, a lot of old, forgotten things. And now, what we do with that, right? We have a lot of things. In the previous slide we saw, around 150 vulnerabilities, right? Obviously, you cannot, and you're not going to resolve all of them, right? You need some kind of prioritization. So, what actually you can do in logical order is to go to the National Vulnerability Database, actually see how that vulnerability is actually mapped to those what, let's say, are listed in the showdown. Then the next thing is go to the TISA resource, which actually lists known vulnerabilities which are currently exploited in the wild. So it is going to reduce the risk. It's going to reduce the list of the vulnerabilities that you saw in the first attempt. And then the third one is EPSS. So I usually tend to forget those acronyms. So it's exploit prediction scoring system. Basically, it's kind of based on large language model, and it tries to predict which vulnerabilities are going to be exploited within the next 30 days, so within 1 month. So combining all of these from more than 100 things, you get down to 6 maybe, and those are actually the ones that you need to work with now, because within the next 30 days, you might be hacked in the end. So, going further on, there might be a case that the hosting actually reveals a Git repository. How do you guys deploy code? So, first time when I started to code something, I did it on the server, on production. I SSH to production server, and I tried to change some PHP code to fix some bugs that I was told to do. So this is how I coded, no deployment. So just SSH into the production. Obviously, it's not the way to do it. Nowadays, how we do that? We have CI/CD, some kind of automated process for the supply chain. But I have another case. I recently spoke to a developer who has made hundreds of web pages on WordPress for their clients. Each web page typically costs, 700 euros, he told me. And, not 700, 7,000 euros. 7,000 euros, right? Like 5 to 10 euros. 5 to 10,000 euros is the value of each website, and he has hundreds of them. I asked, how do you manage the CI/CD? And he kind of stared at me, and he didn't understand what I'm speaking about. Right? Because, he had deployed them, they work. He's still maintaining them actually a bit, so time to time. Well, I'm just asking, what do you do when when the host goes down? Well, there's a copy on my laptop or on my colleague's laptop. Okay, well, fine. No, so no CI/CD, no Git approach, nothing like that, right? So there are such things. They are still out there. Obviously, it's a bad habit, but what do you do? Obviously, those of you, I hope that everyone in this room, those of you who work with Git, Obviously, you have some CI/CD process, and you might even, use Docker technology. So it's good. So you build Docker images, you deploy them to the server. The most common thing that I see from my experience is that you still push, for some reason, the whole repository to the server as well, along with the Docker image, and you mount it for some reasons, because it's easier. Well, this is what I see actually. This is what I see in quite a lot of cases. I'm not sure why it's being done, because it's maybe easier, because it's a legacy code, I don't know, and fully Dockerizing it takes some time and knowledge. Anyway, so if a Git repository as a deployment happens to be on the web server, you can actually browse the .git directory and get some Git configuration, which can lead to the source repository where it's actually located. And basically, this could lead to some external partner, IT company. Let's say for this case, it's leading to external development company who are developing a lot of products, a lot of things, right? For a lot of customers, which can actually expand our attack surface from just 2 domains, web page and the eShop, to 87 potential other clients of them, right? So 87 subdomains for that partner company, more than 100 index ports, and more than 300 known vulnerabilities out there. Expired certificates, around API key addresses, default install pages, a lot of them, quite a lot of them, right? So this is what you can find, and this is what attackers are actually doing. They're not usually, targeting just one. They're targeting as broad as they can, and then obviously prioritizing and then searching for some valuable hits. So that's what they do. So again, I'm showing this once again because it might be quite complex. So these 3 resources: the National Vulnerability Database, which has a list of vulnerabilities. Each day they publish around 600, more than 600 new CVEs. So then you go to the CISA, known exploited vulnerabilities, which are known to be exploited in the wild, not just on paper, but in the wild. And then you go to prioritization system, which actually predicts which of those can be and going to be exploited within the next months, right? So keep an eye on this one. It might be quite useful. Obviously, it's not a very convenient process to do that manually, so you need a way to automate that, but it's the way to help you. So basically, when you put all of this together, you do the reconnaissance, you map all the resources. From 2 domains, you get to around 90 domains in the end through the partners and connected companies. And this is kind of huge attack surface, and obviously the attackers are smart people. They are researchers sometimes, right? And they're quite smart. They work together and they work with their brain. Obviously, they are doing all of this quite quickly. It could be less than a day to actually put that together. And using prioritization and proper validation, they can actually hit the right target quite fast. So the impact: source code stolen. Obviously, there's a Git on the server already, right? Obviously, you can download a lot of files. Many clients affected for the development company, and obviously business reputation damaged or gone from the business entirely. So that's what can happen. Obviously, again, just to remediate that, don't ever deploy the whole source code Obviously, when you do the Docker builds, just put in the image what is essential, not everything. I would recommend to try not mounting the file system because some escapes from the Docker container could be done. The default behavior for the Docker container to run is using root privileges. So if you are putting that on the server with the root user, obviously you give potential attacker way to escape the container and pivot to your operating system. DNS records, virtual hosts. Obviously, well, we saw the CRT.sh resource and Shodan and others. So try to audit your DNS records, periodically. Otherwise, it's actually it's a garbage out there. We live in a digital world of garbage out there. I think if we would compare percentage, 80% garbage, 20% legitimate resources, maybe like that. So then, obviously, security headers and the vulnerabilities that are out there that are mapped back to your infrastructure, you need to respond to them. And actually, I'm not sure if it's already in action, but there's a law actually now that if someone, like me and you, would approach some organization and would present their reconnaissance, their results regarding vulnerabilities, they need to take the action. They cannot ignore you anymore. So there is a law building now towards that. So they cannot ignore that. Might be because of the recent cases, but I think it's a good step forward. So CRT.sh, Shodan, the Raven machine, have been pawned. This is the core. It's not a lot, but it tells a lot, right? It tells a lot, and obviously if you search tools out there, what can automate that, you'll find many. I liked actually the pen test tools.com.org, something like that. They put that together quite nicely. They have a subdomain finder, they have a WordPress scanner, they have a lot of other things. Just from your browser, you don't need to install anything. You can just launch that tool set toward your own infrastructure, get the results in minutes, and act on those. So this is actually what we try to do in our company, in our new initiative. We try to combine all of these things that I showed today together, and this allowed us actually to map any company's infrastructure within maybe 2 minutes and get a fully comprehensive report. So back in the days, when we did security audits manually, the thing that the tool does, it took at least 1 day, actually, yes, at least 1 day. But obviously for the analysis and report collecting and putting together, it took even more. So automation is the key. Try to automate, what you have. The core resources are not that many, as we saw, but you can, you see that they tell you quite a lot. So this is my last slide. Connect me to LinkedIn. Ask me if you have anything of interest. If you need a security report for your company, I'm okay to actually do that for free. So just ask me through LinkedIn, and in 10 minutes you'll get that. Thank you.